They don't lurk in the shadows, don't come out at night. They don't hide in the woods and wait for you to walk by. They live in the light, swimming in sunbeams and crawling across reflections. I've covered all the windows, smashed all the light bulbs and mirrors. I drowned my phone in the sink, snapped my laptop in half and stomped the remains. Everything's unplugged, just me sitting here in the dark, waiting. There's no light in here, nothing to see. I get up from the couch, start pacing the kitchen. The cigarettes are heavy in my pocket, but I dare not light one. I open the fridge, the bulb is smashed. I reach in and grab something. Spaghetti in Tupperware. When did I have spaghetti? Was it only 2 days ago? I pull the lid off, pull a fingerful of noodles out. Dry, no sauce, I can hear them outside, through the walls. A slow, throbbing hum. I think I can make out words, maybe it's just my imagination. It's like that one song, the one written in gibberish that sounds like English. I choke down the noodles, my throat is so dry. I feel my way back to the living room, lay back down on the couch. Nothing to do but sleep. I wake up, no idea how long it's been. I start walking, pacing the house back and forth, the gibberish humming much quieter now. Must be nighttime. I think they get quieter at night. Upstairs, downstairs, each stair step and corner becoming more and more familiar. I ease my way down to the basement. Funny thing is, I used to be afraid of the basement when I was little. Afraid of the damp and the spiders and the dark. Now the dark's my friend. I can't get hurt in the dark. I can hear the ticking of the clock, the old wall clock, no light. Safe. I sit on the damp concrete and hold the clock, feeling it tick. As the ticking goes on and on and on, the Gibberhum grows louder. Morning. No more birds, no crickets, no sounds of cars. Just the Gibberhum. I put the clock back down and feel my way up the stairs. 8 steps, a right-hand bend, 2 more. I feel linoleum under my feet. Kitchen. The Gibberhum isn't everywhere. I think it follows me. I can only hear it coming from the walls where I am. It follows me. I hear a creak from the next room. My eyes dart to it, thumping. Footsteps. No. My heart. The house settling. Another creak, from the wall, by the kitchen window. I look, the Gibberhum is louder now. There's a pulse, a cadence, to the Gibberhum. Like breathing. The windowsill creaks at the highest point. They're testing the window, probing for weak points. I turn and run for the basement stairs, 2 steps, corner, trip, fall. 8 steps bouncing on my neck and back, and the Gibberhum following. I wake up, my arm hurts. I landed on it, I think. The Gibberhum is pulsing outside the basement's ground-level windows. I crawl to my clock, hear it ticking. I sit, my back against the damp wall, clock pressed against my chest. The Gibberhum is more gibber than hum now. It knows I'm in here. Knows I'm hurt. It can't get inside, can't get in the dark. My pulse is matching the ticking, beat for beat. The windowsills are creaking. My eyes darting to and fro in the dark. Then in the corner of my eye, I see a flash. Oh God, they're in here. I keep searching for the source of the light. Always it's in the corner of my eye. It dawns on me. The light is an illusion, my eyes playing tricks on me. But it's still light. I pull the plastic cover off the clock, smash it. There. I take one of the shards and drive it into my left eye. The gibbering is now hooting, the creaking louder still. I gasp and laugh and cut out my right eye. I hold the clock, feeling the fluids from my eyes run into my mouth. Sauce for the spaghetti. A crash, smash, the window is broken. The hooting builds, crawls closer to me. I laugh and hold my clock, feel the heartbeat tick. I just laugh at the hooting, at the scrabbling on the floor, drying near me. How can they hurt me? Everything's dark.
My friend claimed he was being attacked by a demon and seeing crazy lights in the sky. I just assumed he was psycho. Eventually he told me it all started when he was in the public library and tried draining energy from another person. That essentially confirmed his insanity. A month or so later he comes down from the mountains and looks like crap. His girlfriend broke up with him, and he had circular bruises and scratches all over his back. We're sitting on my back porch in 20-degree Fahrenheit weather, and there is a lull in the conversation. All of a sudden I feel what I describe as a humanoid presence standing between us. You know the feeling you get when someone is standing right against your back. It felt like it was made out of burning coals. Just an overwhelming heat that was making me nauseous. Eventually I felt it touch me and my stomach physically churned. I turned around and my friend was looking right at me, and he said, "That's that thing that's following me." Still no idea what to think of it. He is doing better now, but still has attacks and weird things happen to people who live with him. His old roommates from the mountains both went totally insane, like 7th floor schizo.
The house I grew up in was dirt cheap when my father purchased it, but he never knew why. A neighbor asked him why he bought the house the man killed himself in. My father did some research in newspapers and asked the police. It was true the previous owner committed suicide there. But before my father knew, I already did. The shadowy man would sit on the dark staircase telling to upstairs so he can kill me. I saw his face and heard his voice in a dream where he kidnapped and ties up my family and one by one killed them in front of me. When my dad did get the info on the suicide news, it also came with a photocopy of the man's ID, and it was the face from my dream. At a very young age, if I would ever actually go upstairs, he would run full speed at me, then keep shoving me to the walls and floor. But my parents thought the noise was just me playing downstairs watching TV. He would just sit at the top of the stairs staring. We eventually moved. A couple years ago, my sisters and all were talking about that old house when they both started talking about the shadow man that they saw at the top of the stairs. It wasn't just me.
I live in Florida. When I was 10, a bunch of my friends and I went exploring in the mangrove swamps. Where I live, there are a ton of these little islands, and each one is by law a nature preserve. Being the little bastards we were, we disregarded law and acquired adventure. We took a few rowboats and kayaks and went to a big island in the middle of an estuary bay. There were usually a ton of birds there, but it was the middle of summer, so they were mostly up north. When we got to the island, we managed to haul the boats onto the bank, and we went exploring. We stayed in a group and looked for anything interesting. We made it to the middle of the island, and there was a big sinkhole of carved white stone, probably limestone, bones and skulls in the water in the bottom of the pit, a wooden platform going from the edge to the middle of the pit and stopping, and a weird altar a few feet away from where the planks began. The altar was some kind of greenish metal table with deep black gems of some kind embedded in its legs, covered with a really intricate cloth that was slightly thinner than the table and long enough to touch the ground on both sides. There was a skull on the altar, and 3 daggers, 1 gold, 1 silver, 1 iron, were stuck in it. The gold one was in the very top of the skull, the iron one between the eyes, and the silver one was in the back of the skull. I think we were chased away, but I don't remember much after we got up to the altar. At any rate, we agreed never to speak of it, but it's freaking haunted me ever since.
Well, OP, there was this time where I decided to have a nap next to a river one day. Completely sober, I might add. 7 hours later, I wake up on the opposite side of town, walking in a church parking lot, with virtually no recollection of how I got there. Naturally, I assumed I was abducted by aliens. Whatever. It happens. My beehole feels intact. So I wander home and pass out again, and I enter the lucidest of all lucid dreams. I'm in a parking lot, being surrounded by gang stalkers, as usual, but they are decked out in the most extravagant clothing and tattoos displaying occult symbolism, and they also had the ability to change form into other people. They came off as threatening at first, but they ended up sharing with me a wealth of information about the universe and the meaning of life. They claimed to be the machine elves, and I remember quite vividly each form they took. One moment I had a man with a clock for a face telling me that I was currently outside of time, before he morphed into a short, green-haired, homeless-looking girl with a shopping cart. I've never taken DMT before, but this dream was uncannily similar to the reports I've heard. I woke up crying my damn eyes out, feeling as if I had just learned the meaning of life. And frankly, my life hasn't been the same since.
At a Hollywood video in Trenton / near Ewing, maybe was called Palmer Video at the time. My dad worked there years ago, almost 20 years or so. He had a story he told where opening the store one day, he heard some rustling behind the store, near the dumpster. Upon going to investigate, he saw some homeless guys by the dumpster arguing over something. Thinking it was just scraps or something, he tried to shoo them off, but both men very quickly went from arguing to each other to horrified, saying there was something in the dumpster and he needed to call the cops. A bit spooked at nearly 6 a.m., he complied, and the cops showed up. Inside the dumpster was a severed human arm. He and the police were both certain that the homeless men had stumbled into a mafia cleanup op of some sort. We don't know if it was meant to be found as a sign or not, because to my knowledge the rest of the body was never discovered. The mafia's presence in New Jersey is no joke.
Got dreams, so I'll share a real story. It was about 2006, just started freshman year at college. I take a lot of naps and inadvertently lucid dream. Eventually I research it and get pretty proficient. One day during a standard nap I am in a foreign country, nothing specific stands out, I just can't hear anyone, and I know I'm in a foreign country. I become lucid and leave the restaurant I'm in. When I hit the street I immediately feel drunk. I start stumbling and am slightly euphoric. This drunk feeling is out of my control, and I kneel down in the street. A car comes and hits me and I wake up. I was shaken for a bit because I never lost control like that. 2 years later I study abroad in China for a full year. I pretty much lose my identity over there, became someone else, weird, enigmatic, and reclusive. Anyway, to combat this I start drinking heavily, and drinking the hard stuff, baijiu, rice wine. Basically moonshine that you can get for like 10 cents. So one night I go out with people, I think it was a pool hall, I get drunk as I usually do, and end up fighting oncoming traffic. I run up to a cab and kick the door. Then I do it a few more times. A truck comes down the road, an old truck that probably carried revolutionaries in the 40s. I go to punch the driver's window, and the side view mirror catches my face and I go down hard. I wake up in a hospital, and I have no idea what's going. I could have easily died. Later I make the connection between the dream and my near death, which snapped me out of my identity crisis. It clearly wasn't a premonition, but the similarities are eerie, and the dream is connected to possibly one of the most important events in my life. Cheers.
The old part of town is old. Damn old. It dates back to a Viking settlement, curiously on the edge of the Payol, as County Dublin was known for a very long time. It was based off of another nearby settlement, a native one. The Vikings, being invaders, established their little settlements as natives, which is what our own history says. The town is really built up, really old, had many different cultures living it. One particular part of the town slopes and also has many openings to old sores that run through the remains of an all but forgotten cairn. Now, Ireland isn't particularly famous for urban legendary. We have ghosts and fairies and Catholic guilt, but very little local serial killers, Bunnyman Bridges or the like. But we had one in my town, and it was a Humdinger. I needn't relate to you. I think you'll get it. I was in that part of town walking home from a friend's party. It wasn't too late, only around 12:30 am. There's a big alleyway leading down to some old Sui entrance, and it was about November last year, so it was freezing. I didn't live too far away. Now, the one thing happened I dreaded. 3 people came out of the alleyway. One of them was carrying something big and began swinging it at me. They were actually pretty short, hunched over. Little scumbags getting their taste of hoodlum life early. My first instinct was to act friendly, take out my wallet, but my gut wanted to beat the hell out of them. I walked a little slower, held my hands out, and began to talk. I saw them. Thick little bodies, beady eyes, mutant tire mouths. I eyed them for a moment, that was, before one of them snarled and grabbed my arm. Freaking snarled, like an animal. Had a death grip on me while the other one raised his weapon and hit me in the leg with it. He whooped loudly while I grunted and fell to one knee. Then they started gibbering at each other, and I started freaking out. I think a car hum freaked them out because they turned to me. I jumped up, tried to look scary, feeling like I was screwed. I lunged at one, but he held up his goddamn sword. There was a tire screech and I ran, but wasn't chased. I looked back like an idiot, and like even more of one, I circled the alley and saw them drop to their hands and lope into the alleyway. One stayed back while the two others disassembled a bunch of old cobblestones, and I didn't stick around after they dropped into the hole. Make what you want of that.
Anybody who's ever been around a pool for any length of time has occasionally witnessed the weird phenomenon of horsehair worms. Typically, the juveniles live inside the body of a cricket or grasshopper. Once they're fully grown, they somehow manipulate the host to fling itself into the nearest body of water, drowning itself so that the worm may wriggle out. I'd seen it a couple of times, but last week I was amazed to see no fewer than 50 dead crickets in my pool. Never mind that our pool is above ground, so somehow these bastards climbed the stairs to leap to their deaths. It's my brother's job to clean the pool, so I left well enough alone and watched as a small flock of robins alighted on the edge of the pool to feast upon the crickets and worms alike. 3 days after that, we were expecting some strong winds, so I went out back onto the patio to pull the awning off of the gazebo so it wouldn't tear. I was thinking my brother would be pissed off at all the leaves and shit that would get blown into the pool, since he just netted all the crickets out of it. I glance into the water as I'm wrestling to carry 2 chairs at once, because I'm thinking maybe we should cover it up, when I noticed dark lumps dotting the bottom of the pool. I put down the chairs and grab the net and gingerly scoop up one of the indistinct shapes. They were robins. We wound up pulling a dozen of them out of the water all told, some of them with worms wriggling out of their beaks and butts. My brother and I buried them at the edge of the yard, since we didn't want the raccoons to pull them out of the garbage can. But we were too late, because last night I awoke to the sound of splashing and yowling as the neighborhood cats threw themselves into the pool. I called animal control while my brother struggled to catch the cats in his fishing net, which of course they didn't appreciate. I had to drive him to the doc in the box for 7 stitches and a tetanus shot by the time we got all of the cats out of the water and into carriers on their way to the pound. But now I'm worried about him. It's 2 a.m. and he's been standing at the living room window staring out at the pool since midnight.
I had enjoyed my last few months as a vagabond. I spent all of my time living off the land, enjoying the finer aspects of nature. I lived in 300 square miles of forest, and as far as I knew, nobody was ever aware of my presence. That is, until one night. I was tracking an animal that had somehow managed to partially elude one of the traps I had laid for it. The blood trail was thin and hard to follow in the thick darkness of the heavily wooded area, but I kept following it anyway. Anything that could leave that much blood behind could probably feed me for quite a while. After what seemed like forever, I wandered into a very large clearing, at least a couple 100 yards wide. Strange, I had never noticed it before, even in all my tenure in that forest. And there, in the middle of the clearing, was my prey. It was huge. At least 10 feet long, and it looked like it was having a pretty hard time getting around. I crouched and slowly made my way forward to get a better look at it. I had just gotten close enough to start making out its form when a loud crack emanated from the forest, somewhere to my right. The chest cavity of the enormous beast exploded in front of me, and it let out a loud guttural cry that seemed to fill every inch of space around me. I turned to run, trying to escape the clearing. I didn't want to know what kind of weapon could do that to the behemoth that I'd been stalking. And I sure as shit didn't want to find out what it could do to me. I ran for my life, and I only looked back once, but as luck would have it, in that instance my body collided with something huge, that sent me reeling flat onto my back. I looked up to see a mammoth of a man standing over me, staring at me. He smiled, and I heard him yell out, "Hey, 23, check this guy out." He almost caught wind of our little experiment. I looked quickly to see if I could make out who he was talking to, and when I looked back I was staring down the barrel of the man's gun. "Wait," I cried, "I don't know what's going on and I won't tell anyone. I don't even have anyone to tell." "Of course you won't, we can't let you," he replied. "What do you mean, who are you people?" I stammered, my heart was trying to explode in my chest. "Can't you guess, young man? We're the government." At that moment, a sharp crack filled the air, and I became just another piece of history.